Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into, well, a single world-altering decision.
A really pivotal moment.
Yeah, we're talking about Siddhartha Gautama, a prince living a life of just absolute privilege, choosing to walk away from everything.
Mm-hmm. And we're pulling for sources that don't just sort of tell the story of this event, the Great Renunciation, as it's often called, but really dig into its profound meaning, the impact.
Exactly. Our mission here is to understand the sheer weight of this moment, to see it not just as like a historical footnote, but as this deeply human drama that honestly still holds insights for us today.
Definitely.
Because this decision, it didn't just happen in a vacuum, did it? I mean, our sources point right back to those seismic shocks, the foresights.
Right. Seeing old age, sickness, death, and then that wandering ascetic.
Yeah, these weren't just observations for him, were they? They completely shattered his carefully constructed world, his gilded cage, you could say.
They were the cracks that let reality flood in. He saw the inescapable nature of suffering, something totally absent from his life before then.
And once he saw it, the sources tell us he just couldn't unsee it. That knowledge became, well, an unbearable weight.
It wasn't just some intellectual concept either. He felt it profoundly.
Imagine the tension there. I mean, he had a loving wife, Yashodhara, a newborn son, Rahula.
A whole kingdom, power, comfort beyond anything most people could even dream of.
Right. All of that pulling him one way, but then this persistent unease that the foresights ignited, pulling him another.
Exactly. He was surrounded by everything society tells you brings happiness, yet our sources describe him as feeling profoundly restless, just burdened by these fundamental truths he'd suddenly glimpsed.
So the palace, the luxury...
It started to feel hollow.
Empty.
That's the picture painted, yeah. The joy and pleasure felt fleeting, paper thin compared to the universal, inescapable reality of suffering he now understood. Our sources describe this internal state as, well, truly agonizing. The comfort he'd always known now felt almost like a distraction, a barrier to what truly mattered.
And what's striking, isn't it, is that these realities, impermanence, suffering, they aren't unique to his time. They're still right here with us.
Absolutely.
His struggle back then, it kind of prompts the question for us, doesn't it? How do we grapple with that same knowledge in our own lives?
It really does. And this unbearable weight of knowing, this internal conflict, it naturally led to the crisis point, the decision itself.
Which wasn't impulsive. Our sources are clear on that.
No, not at all. They speak of him wrestling with it intensely, for quite a long time, actually.
How did the sources describe that agony? I mean, what exactly was he weighing?
Oh, everything. A deep affection for his family, for Yashodhara and Rahula, the immense pressure of his royal duty, his father's expectations, all of that against this overwhelming pull, this yearning to find a real solution to suffering, a higher truth.
It sounds like a battle for his soul, almost.
That's how the sources depict it, yes.
And the narrative often focuses on the silent departure, doesn't it? Slipping away in the dead of night.
Yeah, almost deliberately not waking the people he loved most.
Why is that detail so emphasized, do you think?
Well, it's a powerful image, isn't it? The sources portray it this way, I think, partly to emphasize the paradox.
How so?
It highlights the depth of his affection, the act of leaving quietly, not wanting to cause that immediate pain, while simultaneously underscoring the absolute meaningful necessity of his choice. It wasn't done lightly. Not at all.
It really speaks volumes about the weight of what he felt he had to do, especially regarding Yashodhara and young Rahula just asleep there.
Absolutely. And it's crucial, as our sources present it, that this wasn't an act of personal abandonment driven by selfishness. That's not the frame.
Okay, so how is it framed?
It's framed as a kind of desperate measure, really, born from this overwhelming sense of universal purpose. He believed he had to find this truth, and he believed that ultimately finding it was the only way he could truly benefit everyone, including his family, eventually.
So the leaving itself was the act, but it was immediately followed by these powerful symbols of renunciation, right? Shedding the royal clothes, cutting his hair.
Yes, exactly. And these weren't just practical changes like getting new clothes. The sources present them as deliberate, really potent, outward declarations of a huge internal shift.
Okay.
Think of what those garments and that long hair symbolized. His princely identity, his status, his whole connection to the world of power and expectation.
He was literally stripping away his entire identity as Siddhartha the prince.
Precisely. He was actively choosing to become no one in the eyes of the world. He was adopting the appearance of an ascetic, just like the one he'd seen whose path seemed to offer some hope.
A tangible severance.
Yeah, a tangible severance from the material world.
Yeah.
A radical commitment to a life focused solely on spiritual inquiry. You have to remember, in a society deeply defined by class and status, this was an earth-shattering move.
Yeah.
Hugely radical.
And the sources suggest this went even deeper than just, clothes and hair, didn't it?
Oh, much deeper. It was about letting go of the ego that was defined by that royal identity. He was shedding the self that had been constructed by society and privilege,
in order to potentially become someone who could finally grasp the fundamental nature of existence itself.
That's the idea, to become empty in a way, to make space for that understanding.
So stepping outside the palace gates, that wasn't the end of the struggle. It was just the beginning of an entirely new, incredibly challenging phase.
Exactly. Just the first step. He exchanged absolute comfort for profound austerity, known paths for completely uncharted territory, spiritual exploration.
Our sources describe him stepping into a world of just total uncertainty. What would that world actually have been like for him, coming from where he did?
Well, harsh. Really harsh. He would have encountered other ascetics, people practicing extreme self-denial, different philosophical schools.
All sorts of ideas floating around.
Yeah, and the raw, unvarnished realities of life outside the palace walls, the very suffering he was trying to understand and ultimately overcome, but now face-to-face every day.
Yep. It must have required immense courage stepping into that.
Incredible courage, yeah. Stepping into that unknown, driven only by this inner conviction, with absolutely no guarantee he'd find what he was looking for. None at all.
And as we discussed, the sources don't frame this as an escape from responsibility.
No, quite the opposite. It's presented as a courageous embrace of a far greater responsibility. A responsibility he felt towards all beings, not just his kingdom.
It speaks volumes, then, about the depth of his compassion and this unwavering commitment to finding a way out of suffering for everyone.
It really does. That drive seems central.
It's just fascinating how this single decision, made so long ago, continues to resonate so powerfully. Siddhartha's Great Renunciation, it remains this incredibly pivotal moment in human history.
It really does. You can't overstate its significance. It marked the start of a personal quest that fundamentally changed the world. I mean, it led directly to the path of Buddhism, a path followed by millions upon millions ever since.
And maybe the core message for us, looking back, isn't just literally about leaving a palace.
Probably not, no.
It's more this powerful idea that true fulfillment, genuine meaning, might not always be found in just accumulating comfort or meeting society's expectations.
Right.
But maybe in the courage to look inward, to confront the difficult truths of existence, and seek a path that alleviates suffering, both our own and that of others.
His leaving wasn't about giving up. The sources paint it very clearly as a transformative starting point, a necessary beginning.
Yeah. It's a story that really forces you to pause and reflect on your own life, doesn't it? What are we attached to? What truths might we be avoiding?
Big questions.
So the Great Renunciation, ultimately a moment of extraordinary personal sacrifice, rooted in this profound compassion, which ended up opening a path to liberation that has echoed across millennia.
Beautifully put. And it leaves us maybe with this question to ponder. What does it truly mean in our own life today to renounce something valuable?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a kingdom, but perhaps an expectation, a comfort, an identity we cling to. What does it mean to renounce something like that in the pursuit of a higher purpose or a deeper truth?
And are such, radical acts of seeking still possible? Or even necessary, perhaps, in navigating the complexities of our modern world? Something to think about.